How's it going, guys? Gus back here with Backcountry Ballistics. Today we're going to be talking about backpack, and that backpack is going to be the Stone Glacier Sky Talus 6900 pack. This has been a really great pack for me. I've had it for a couple years now and wanted to talk about it with you guys and explain some things that I love about the pack and some things that I wish were a little bit different. So we're going to start off by going over the pack, some of the specs. Then we'll get into some of my experiences and we'll lay it on the table and I'll show you guys some things that I really love about the pack and some things that I wish were a little bit different. So jumping right into it, again, this is the Sky Talus 6900. There are 3 frame models that come with all Stone Glacier packs, not just necessarily this pack, but their way that they have their frame system set up is there's 3 different frames, 2 different sizes. So there's the Crux, that's what this pack is. This pack is the frame is the Crux. It's designed for a little bit more of a flat back, where they have an X-curve, which is designed for a little bit more curvature in the back and that kind of thing. Then they have the Crux Short, which is designed obviously for much shorter torso lengths, as well as just giving you some more clearance behind the back of the head and things like that. I do have quite a bit of curve to my back. However, they describe the Crux being ideal for people with a torso less than 19 inches, which I definitely have. So the Crux actually fits me really well, and it's been a really great pack. Prior to this pack, I actually had an X-curve frame pack, and it was good. However, the Crux, being a little bit shorter, fits my body type a lot better. I'm only 5'8", and so that little bit shorter frame just carries weight better for me compared to having the longer X-curve. The X-curve seemed like it always put a little weird pressure points on my hips and that kind of thing, where the Crux allows me to sink that hip belt up higher and pull things in a little bit tighter to my hip bone and be on my, have the weight on my bone structure rather than hanging out over my, lack of butt, if you will. So there's the 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. This is a small waist belt and small straps. Again, I'm not a large guy, so the small waist belt and straps really work well for me. I'm able to utilize the majority of the play in those straps and waist belt, where a lot of mediums and things like that, packs without that type of range for adjustment, leaves me kind of pulling a lot more slack out of the belt and things like that throughout the day. So the small really works well for me. There's 3 color waves, this pack in particular, but most Stone Glacier packs come in 3 colors right now. They have the Ranger Green, which is a really nice dark green. This is the tan. Then they also offer a foliage, which is honestly a little bit more like a gray color. The weight of this pack, as it sits with the Crux frame, is about 5 pounds, 5 ounces. And then if you go to the X-curve, it's a little bigger, obviously, so you're going to be looking at about 5 pounds, 9 ounces with that. It is a 6,400 cubic inch main compartment. So this main bag right here is 6,400 inches, and then all the side with the 2 side pockets and the top lid and that kind of thing gets you more into that 6,900 cubic inches or so. It has a center zip, so right now obviously it has this tripod loop, if you will, right here, and then a tool loop down here, which actually I really appreciate, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. The tripod right here goes on the front of the pack, clip over, and then undo that, and that exposes this main zipper right here, which is just a center zip. I find it really great to work, to be able to pack as well as unpack things. I think the center zip is really great. You can also just zip it all the way to the top and top load if you have a lot of bulkier stuff, like if you're using your sleeping bag without a compression sack, that type of thing. You can just stuff it in from the top, and that works really well. The way between the 2, the top opening and then the center zip. The side pockets, it has some 2 large pockets on each side. I really like this feature. I think this is a pretty awesome, I just have a rain cover and stuff like that in the side over here, and then I can put my spotting scope on one side and offset the weight of the rifle on the other side, which is a really cool feature. It has a 150-pound load rating. I'm not sure exactly how much I've packed out as far as max pack weight I've carried. I can say that I've carried a lot of really heavy loads when hauling elk out, whole deer at a time, that type of stuff. This pack holds up to weight really well, especially that Crux frame, like I said. For me, the Crux frame carries that weight so much better than the X-curve. However, this pack, again, is rated for 150 pounds. Construction, it's all Cordura 500, which is a nice happy medium in my opinion. Cordura 1000, which you see on a lot of like military packs and stuff like that, is a really, really heavy duty fabric. However, with being heavy duty, it comes at a weight penalty. That's something that we're going to talk about quite a bit with this pack, is balancing between durability and function and the weight of the pack itself. There's also a bunch of X-Pack material on the load shelf and in between the pack and the frame. The frame is mostly out of X-Pack, and the load shelf is as well. Made in the USA. I can't say how much I appreciate that. There's a lot of pack companies out there. A lot of them are made in the USA. There are a lot of pack companies in general, and that's something that I wanted to talk about. This is my experience with this pack. There are, probably a dozen good hunting pack companies out there right now. It really comes down to what fits your body type, what you're looking for in a pack. If you're looking for a pack that's going to pack 600 pounds the best, there's a pack for it. If you're looking for a pack that's going to weigh 3 pounds and hold your teepee upgrade, or excuse me, be able to pack a teepee and a water bottle and that's about it, there's packs for that too. To me, this is kind of a good balance between both sides. It is lightweight, however, it is not so ultralight that you're sacrificing function. So we'll take it off here, get it set down here, and we will go over some other things as well for this pack. Okay, so we'll go over a couple of the features of the pack, things that I really like about the design of the pack, and the things that it does really well in my opinion. So again, it's got this big center zip. In front of that is the tripod pocket. So 2 legs of the tripod in here, straps over the top. Makes it really nice to have the tripod handy. One thing I love about this pack compared to some of the other packs I've seen or maybe buddies have had and that kind of thing is when we get to a glassing knob, I can pop my tripod out with 2 buckles. My tripod's out. My sit pad I keep underneath this, just the bottom 2 straps of the pack here. So I pop this out, pop my tripod out, and boom, I'm glassing. And then something that you could do, I don't do this, but you could do, you could put a puffy coat and things like that on the right side of the pack, and essentially you could be glassing for hours and hours without ever having to get into the main pack. I really appreciate that, and I think it's a really good option, or excuse me, a really good design feature of this pack. So it has these 2 large side pockets. I always run my rifle on this side. I do have the Stone Glacier rifle carrier, which is nice because the rifle carrier connects straight to the frame and carries that weight of the rifle a little bit more balanced. But again, I run the rifle on this side, and so then on this side, I offset it with my spotting scope. So the spotting scope goes on this side, which is really nice because again, if you're glassing, you're able to get into, have your tripod, sit pad, and spotting scope all right there, which is really nice, not have to dig into the main pad. I do throw my pack cover, which is a Mystery Ranch pack cover, but I still have it and love it. But there's also, I usually keep a beanie and gloves in this side. They'll also add a little bit of layer of protection on my spotting scope, since technically it is kind of sitting outside my pack a little bit. So, and then obviously the lid up top, that's the junk drawer of backpacks, and mine's no exception. I keep all sorts of stuff in here: first aid kit, water filter, TP, battery and charger for my phone, and just stuff like that I keep up here, and it's just where it stays. But again, one of the best features of this pack to me is the big center zip. I really like the center zip. To me, this is the most ideal zipper on the backpack. The beaver tails are really cool, and I think they add a lot of great things when you're packing your pack. However, one thing is when I pack, just stuff the crap out of a pack, the beaver tails to me are a little bit harder to get. You have to pull material this way and then do the zipper and that kind of thing. With the center zip, kind of no matter how much stuff I have in the pack, it just seems to always run pretty easy. I have ran some Gear Aid zipper lubricant on this quite frequently. It's a waterproof zipper, so if you don't put that stuff on there, it has a tendency to get a little bit bound up, and you can see some of the waterproofing starting to come off of that zipper just after use. However, this zipper has seemed to stay relatively waterproof for me. I really like the center zip, and compared to the beaver tail, a lot of guys are very, very pro beaver tail, and I think that's awesome. But for me, the center zip is kind of that happy medium. It does have a snow collar. Here, I'm not sure you can see that. It does have a snow collar and just a top lid, or excuse me, top hole here, so you can just start stuffing stuff in there. I really like that too, because a lot of times when I'm packing up camp or something, I'll undo the center zip, kind of get my smaller stuff in there and strategically place it. And then once I get to my tent and sleeping bag and stuff like that, where, you know, puffy coat and things like that, I'll just, from there, just take it on the top and just start shoving it down in there. Then you have the nice snow collar on top, and then you can, there's a little clip right here that you can clip here and keep everything nice and tight to the top, as well as you break these guys loose here, you move these straps to the other side, and you have full expedition mode, or whatever they call it, where you can get as much, you know, brings on another 500 cubic inches or so of pack right there, pretty easy. So whether you have, you know, a 2-day, a 3-day, a 10-day pack or load, I do think this pack can do most things really, really well. And that's kind of why I've settled on that 7,000 cubic inch size or so. A few of the accessories I have on the pack, just the water bottle holder, and then just a side pocket. I keep a tourniquet and a headlamp in here, and then obviously just an Nalgene holder there. Works really well. So I'll go over kind of a few more of these features up tight, and then kind of go over my experience with the bag and the pack so far. So again, I had a Stone Glacier before this. It was the 5900 and it was the X Curve. Loved the bag layout. Had a big beaver tail open in the front. Worked really well. Super easy to pack, super easy to unpack. However, the X Curve frame and me just did not get along very well. When I called Stone Glacier and was ordering this pack, I had a lot of questions to see if there were other options as far as the frame goes and that kind of thing. When you go on their website, it kind of is a little bit misleading, where it talks about the Crux frame being directly for flat backs, where the X Curve, if you stand against a wall, put your hand behind your back, that kind of thing, if you have X amount of inches that stick off the wall, you should use the X Curve. I definitely had that, you know, distance behind the back where I thought the X Curve was going to be the best option for me. It just turned out that it wasn't. The Crux definitely worked better for me, and I'm glad that I made the change. And this pack is a really good pack size, in my opinion, for Western hunting and a lot of different varieties. So longest pack in I've done with this pack has been about 10 days, where backpacked out of, you know, backpacked in. I was able to go in slightly before that and leave some food up there. However, I was able to pack everything I needed out and in, and everything worked really well. Sorry, these flies are ridiculous, but the size is really good for that 5 to, I would say, 7 or 8 day range. You can go longer, obviously. One option that I don't think a lot of people think about or do often is using the load shelf to stuff, you know, use a dry bag and put all your freeze-dried meals or any larger, bulkier items in that dry bag, put it on your, you know, put the dry bag inside the load shelf, and then be able to use that to carry the larger stuff, and then you have all of your main bag to pack the rest of your stuff. A lot of times I hunt with a guy who has a 5K, he loves the 5K, but sometimes when you go on the longer hunts, that's exactly what he does. He puts his food in the dry bag, puts it on his load shelf, and then uses the main bag for the rest of his camp and stuff like that. So that works really well. And if you know, not saying you need a 7,000 cubic inch bag to hunt out west, that's really not the case. I just think this one works really well for a lot of different, you know, for those longer hunts, as well as it folds up. Obviously, I just got done doing a deer hunt with this bag, and this is more of like a day mode, but it folds up really nice, and, you know, obviously compresses down, and it works out great that way too. So don't be afraid to get a little bit bigger bag. Even if you are only doing maybe 1 or 2 really long trips in a year, I do think the little bit bigger bag has more versatility than, say, a smaller bag all the time. My experience so far, so again, I've had this bag for about 2 years. When I first got it, I got it shortly before a hunting season, went on a 10-day deer hunt, helped pack out a buddy's deer in that 10 days, plus a 10 days worth of camp and that kind of thing. Bag worked awesome. There was a little bit of kind of some weird popping noises as we were coming off the mountain. Didn't really think much of it. Went up a couple weeks later. I shot an elk, a spike, and when I was packing that spike out, I actually broke the carbon stays in the frame. So whether you have the X Curve or the Crux, you can see 2 channels right here, one here, and it's the same on each side. There's a carbon rod in each one of those channels. These outer ones, I actually snapped. And that was an issue, obviously. Packing out a spike super late at night. It was a big big ordeal. I felt like I was carrying out a 100-pound pack with a JanSport backpack. Not the most ideal situation. However, got through it and kind of finished out that hunt, and then came back the next day, got the rest of the elk. Everything worked out okay. Ended up packing out deer on that trip as well for another buddy, and that was with the broken pack, but we had 4 guys to pack out 1 deer. Obviously the loads were not heavy at all. I didn't really notice it. Fast forward to bear season the next year, and went to start loading the pack for bear season. Noticed the stays were broken again. Called Stone Glacier and said, "Hey guys, what's going on here? This isn't right." And they said, "Absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's not right." They had me look at something, and if you look, might be kind of hard to show, but right here, don't have to go on the inside. So in here, there's these Velcro straps that fold up underneath the waist belt that hold those 2 stays per side. I had a defective frame, and my, the fuzzy side of the Velcro was actually about half as long, and so it was only biting just barely onto the hook side of the Velcro. And so my stays, anytime I would put any weight in it, the stays would actually undo that Velcro and stick out, and hence be very easy to break. That obviously didn't go very well. I asked them, "Okay, well, how do we fix this? What can I do? I have a hunt in like a week." They were super awesome. They apologized profusely. They told me how to fix it, or what they were going to do to fix it. And their way of fixing it was, I think I called them on like a Tuesday, and definitely by Thursday, but I'm pretty sure it was Wednesday night, a brand new frame showed up at my house. I put my bag on that frame, took the old frame, put it in the box they sent me, and sent it back. Never heard anything since. Didn't charge me a dime, obviously. They were super, super awesome to work with, and that's been my experience with Stone Glacier and their customer service, as well as just calling and asking them about product details and things like that. They're a great group of guys, and they do a really good job making packs. They hit this kind of middle of the road for me really well, again, where it's a lightweight pack, it's large, I can do the long hunts with it. However, it's still a workhorse. Best I can count, I think I've counted, I'm about 10 or 11 animals with this pack packed out. A couple elk, couple bears, whole lot of mule deer, and this thing is awesome. It rides really, really well compared to a lot of other packs I've tried. I have not tried them all. I'm not going to say that this is the only bag that you guys should buy. There's a ton of good options on the market, but this has been my experience so far, and it's been a really good one. The kind of fast forwarding the review now, it's like, okay, I've had this bag for 2 years. I have packed out nearly a dozen animals with it, 10 animals or so, and how's the bag doing? The bag's doing okay. The buck I shot last month kind of changed my opinion of how it's doing at this point. The bag itself is great. I don't have there's no stitching coming undone or anything like that. One thing I really respect about the way they construct these bags is if you look at this seam, they put this is on all the seams in the bag, but they do the stitch of the seam here, then they do a ribbon tape over the top, and all of that is forced to the outside. So the hem and the seam are actually working together to keep that hem closed when it does get weight in it. Now this is just a trekking pole pocket, or a small tripod pocket or whatever, but it's the same throughout the rest of the pack. If you look down this here and where the X curve hits the cordura and things like that, all of that's built exactly the same. So durability wise, or excuse me, longevity, the pack wise, I could definitely keep hunting with this pack. It's in really good shape. I do clean it obviously after every time I pack something out. But that being said, one thing I noticed after this last buck were a few things I hadn't noticed before. If you look at these center buckles, you can see how they're kind of starting to get a little bit shiny. I don't know if you can really tell on the camera or not. They're starting to get a little bit shiny here. So these center straps are starting to get just a little bit worn out in terms of this is a, I wouldn't say it's a locking buckle, but it does have the teeth right here. And I just think from, use and that kind of thing, they aren't holding, when I put my tripod and stuff on here, they aren't holding nearly as well as they did when they were new. So that's something I've noticed is they almost feel kind of waxy too, compared to another area, cordura, like say down here, it's a lot stiffer and feels a little bit more rigid, where this feels very malleable and again kind of shiny, different change of color, and those buckles and latches just don't seem to be biting like they used to. The other thing is the smell. So I do wash my pack every time. However, after this last one, I noticed that I had to kind of wash it, I think it was 3 times to fully get that dead deer smell out, and even then there was still just a little bit of funk to it until I took it up on this last trip and had some more brush and dirt and dust and that type of thing kind of embed itself in the pack. I don't know what else I could do different. We'll do another video on how I wash my packs. It's kind of the Stone Glacier recommended way, as well as kind of any manufacturer way. To me, it seems like it's kind of generalized across the board. But you can see this X curve here with the load shelf. That's where I noticed the smell the most, was kind of down through this X pack material, not X curve, excuse me, X pack material, and the straps and the webs down here. And then the biggest thing was down here on the waist belt. So in here, there's some foam, and obviously as I have an animal or game bags in the back, all that blood's just running down into this foam. So I noticed a lot of smell in there. And once I got that cleaned out, that definitely helped. However, I still, even just flipping it around and touching it and stuff, I can still, it's not a bad smell, it doesn't smell like rotten meat, but I can definitely tell that this thing is definitely packed out some animals for sure. But one thing we'll go over, or that's kind of my experience so far and where we're at with everything. In conclusion, would I buy the pack again? Yeah, absolutely. It's been an awesome pack. Even with having the stay issues and things like that, Stone Glacier did an awesome job with their customer service. They overnighted me a pack. Again, I'm in Idaho, they're in Montana, so it was very quick to get that frame to me. But they didn't have to do that. They could have had me send mine in, send a new one out when they got it and saw it was an issue or something like that. But they just took my word for it. I don't even think I sent them any pictures. I just explained to the guy over the phone what the issue was, and boom, I had a new frame on the way. So those guys are awesome. Their product, I can't really think of anything that this pack doesn't do really, really well for me. I think this, for me, is kind of that happy medium where the 5K is probably better for 75% of the hunts that I do. However, this pack is just niche enough for me, and it falls into that place where I do enough hunts of that week-long to longer hunts where I do need the extra storage, and I think that 7,000 cubic inch is right about where it should be. Some things that I wish were a little bit different about the pack: the way the lid attaches to the frame. When you have meat you have a lot of meat in the load shelf, and then you're putting the pack over the top of it, the lid can get kind of annoying. The attachment points are a little bit weird. The other thing I would say is, if you buy this pack, or a Stone Glacier pack in general, before you go out in the field, practice taking the bag off, putting a pillow in this load shelf, and then putting the bag back on. Once you get the bag off of the frame, there are a ton of straps, and you kind of have to understand what you're doing and know where things go. At least have a general idea of, hey, I want 2 side straps and a vertical strap, or have an idea of kind of the way it should work. Might not be a bad idea to screen record the video from Stone Glacier on their website. Screen record that video on your phone so you can look at it in the field and reference it and make sure you're packing it out right, because if you don't do it, things start sliding through some of the straps and that type of thing. It's kind of a disaster. So make sure you know how to use the load shelf appropriately and properly. But again, I really like this pack. It's been really great. It's holding up well, starting to definitely show some signs of wear. However, I've put it through a lot too. This pack has probably been in the mountains for, gosh, I don't know. It's been a lot of days in the mountains, and it's packed out a lot of meat. So all in all, I can't really expect more out of the pack. And one thing I wanted to bring up is, yes, it's an expensive pack. However, I think this is one of those areas where if you spend a little bit of money on the pack, much like boots or certain articles of clothing, I really think it's going to pay off for a lot of people when you do kill an elk for the first time, or you do kill a deer, or maybe you've killed a ton of animals and you've always just used a old military Alice pack or whatever. Spending a little bit of extra money on a pack, to me, is a huge comfort thing, because yes, they're expensive. However, they hold up a long time, and it's something it's an investment worth making. One thing else too is I see a lot of Stone Glacier packs on Marketplace in my area, where if you can pick one of these up off Marketplace for $450 or so and get one half price or whatever, I think that's a really, really good option. And to be honest, probably not a lot of guys are packing out animals 2, 3, 4, 5 a year. So if it's a 2-year-old pack, it might have only seen 2 animals or something like that. You know, I think it has a lot of life. They can have a lot of life in them off a marketplace, and if you can find the right size hip belt and the right size frame and stuff like that, it might be a really good steal, especially at a discounted rate. But again, if you have the opportunity and you have the means, I don't think you'd be upset that you did spend full price on one of these packs. I think the 6900, again, for me, Western hunting, it's a great option. However, they make a 5900, which is obviously about 1,000 cubic inches smaller. And if you're not doing the over the week-long trips, that's probably the size for 90% of people. But yeah, make sure you guys like the video, comment below. Let me know what packs you guys have tried. So the ones you love, the ones you hate. It'd be a good conversation down below in the comments. So thanks for checking this video out, guys, and looking forward to the next one. Thanks.